Jace walked slowly through the ruins of the old research station. Metal beams stood like tall, silent trees around him. The place had been empty for years, and everything felt cold and forgotten. His boots made soft echoes with every step. He came here only to look for old tools and spare parts. Nothing special. But something felt strange today. The air was too quiet. He lifted his small flashlight and moved it around the hallway. Dust floated in the beam like tiny stars. Broken wires hung from the ceiling. Doors were twisted and half open, as if someone had left in a hurry long ago. Jace had seen many abandoned places before, but this one felt different. There was a strange tension, like the building was holding a secret. Then he heard it, a soft sound, very faint, almost hidden. It came again, a weak cry. Jace froze. He turned his head to listen, holding his breath. At first, he thought it was a broken machine somewhere in the dark. But no, the sound was too soft, too alive. It was the cry of something small and helpless. He followed the sound slowly, shining his light ahead of him. The cry echoed through the metal halls, making it hard to tell where it came from. He moved past old containers and fallen pipes until he reached a wall covered in scratch marks. The cries grew louder. He knelt down near a broken vent at the bottom of the wall. The metal was bent outward, like something had tried to escape. Jace leaned closer. It was dark inside, very dark. Then he heard another sound, a weak growl. He pulled back in surprise. Something was in there. Jace swallowed hard. He wanted to help, but he needed to be careful. He slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a small glow stick. He cracked it, and soft green light filled the vent. He pushed it gently inside, and then he saw them. An alien cat, larger than any cat he ever seen, lay inside the vent. Her fur glowed faintly like soft blue fire. She was bleeding from one side, and her breathing was rough and uneven. But that was not all. Beside her were 3 tiny kittens. They were no bigger than his hands, their fur glowing like dim stars. They were huddled close to their mother, crying softly. Jace felt his heart sink. Someone had trapped them here. Someone wanted them to die. The mother cat lifted her head weakly and stared at him. Her eyes were bright gold, full of fear and pain. She tried to growl again, but her body trembled too much. She didn't have strength left. Jace raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he whispered softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The mother blinked slowly, still watching him. The kittens cried louder, and she tried to pull them closer with her tail, but even that seemed hard for her now. Jace knew he couldn't leave them. They would not survive long. He had no idea what species they were, but they were alive, scared, and hurt. That was enough. He spoke softly, trying to calm her. "I want to help you. Let me help." The mother's breathing was slow and painful. She looked at the kittens, then back at him. Her glow dimmed, like she was losing strength fast. Finally, she lowered her head onto her paws. It wasn't a sign of trust, but it wasn't a threat either. It was all the permission Jace needed. He gently pulled the vent wider. The metal scraped loudly, but the mother didn't react. She was too weak. Jace carefully slid his arms under her, feeling her trembling body. She was warm, but fading. The kittens squeaked when he touched them. One climbed onto his arm, gripping it with tiny glowing claws. Jace smiled softly. "You're brave," he whispered. He lifted them all out and held them close to his chest to keep them warm. The mother was heavier than she looked, but he didn't care. He turned and hurried out of the ruined hall, stepping over debris and broken machines. The kittens cried softly, their sound shaking in his ears. Outside, the wind was cold, brushing against his face. His camp was not far. He moved quickly, holding the mother and her babies close, trying to shield them from the wind. He didn't know who had left them to die. He didn't know what they were or why they were important. But one thing was clear to him. If he hadn't come today, they would have been lost forever. Jace walked faster, feeling the mother's slow breathing against his arms. He whispered to her again, hoping she understood. "You're safe now. I promise. I've got you." Far behind him, the abandoned station stood silent once more. But now, Its silence hid a secret that Jace had carried away, a secret that would change everything. Jace pushed open the door of his small campsite shelter with his shoulder because both his hands were full. The alien mother lay weakly in his arms, and the 3 glowing kittens clung to his jacket, crying softly. Warm air from a heater rushed out to meet them, and Jace felt the mother's body relax a little. She was freezing. He gently placed her on a thick blanket he kept near the heater. The kittens crawled close to her, their tiny bodies glowing faintly. The mother tried to lift her head, but it only rose an inch before falling again. She didn't make a sound. She didn't growl. She didn't hiss. She was silent, too silent. Jace could see pain in the way her chest rose and fell. Her breaths were slow, almost shaky. He knew she was hurt badly. He knelt beside her and carefully checked her side. Her fur hid most of the injury, but when he moved a little, he saw dry blood stuck to her skin. He frowned. Something sharp had cut her deeply. It wasn't a small accident. Someone had done this. He whispered softly, "Who did this to you?" The mother's golden eyes opened halfway. They looked tired, almost empty. She didn't react to the sound of his voice. She didn't move when the kittens climbed onto her back and curled up between her wings. She just breathed slowly, as if every breath cost her strength. Jace wanted to help her, but he didn't know much about alien biology. He knew how to fix machines, not living creatures. Still, he couldn't just sit and watch her fade. He hurried to the supply box and pulled out a medical kit. The tools were old, but still useful. He returned to her side and spoke softly again. "This might hurt. I'm sorry." The mother didn't respond. He gently cleaned the wound, removing old blood and dirt. Her body twitched once, but she didn't make a sound. He worked slowly, trying to cause as little pain as possible. The kittens watched him with wide, glowing eyes. One of them let out a tiny cry as if calling him for help or maybe asking him to hurry. "I'm doing my best," Jace whispered. When he finished, he wrapped her side with a bandage and checked her pulse. It was faint but steady. She wasn't dying, not yet, but she needed rest, warmth, and time. He placed a small bowl of warm water near her. She didn't touch it. He brought a soft cloth to wipe her face. She didn't react. The only sign that she was alive was a slow movement of her chest. The silence felt heavy. Jace sat beside her and slowly reached out his hand. He didn't touch her, just held it near her head, so she could smell him if she wanted. The mother blinked once, a slow, tired blink. Then she closed her eyes again. Hours passed. Jace stayed near her, watching the kittens as they crawled over her wings, trying to comfort her. Sometimes they mewed softly. Sometimes they slept, little lights rising and falling with their breaths. The mother remained still. At one point, Jace tried to feed her a little warm nutrient gel. She didn't open her mouth. He sighed and set aside. "I don't know what else to do," he murmured. He looked at her body again and noticed something strange. Her wings, thin and glowing, were folded tightly around the kittens. Even in her injured state, she kept them protected. Her silence wasn't just weakness. It was focus. It was effort. She was saving her strength to keep her babies warm. Jace felt a tightness in his chest. She wasn't ignoring him. She wasn't scared of him. She was just exhausted. Too exhausted to waste any energy. "You're a strong mom," he said quietly. "Stronger than anyone I know." The wind outside howled, shaking the walls of the shelter. The metal creaked, but inside the small room, it was warm and calm. The kittens finally fell asleep, curled against their mother's chest. Jay sat in a chair beside her, watching her carefully. Every few minutes he checked her breathing. It was still slow, but it stayed steady. He wanted to stay awake to make sure nothing happened, but the long day finally pressed on his eyes. He rested his head on the table beside him, fighting sleep. "Don't leave them," he whispered to the mother, though he wasn't sure she heard. "Don't leave me." He dozed off for a moment. When he woke, the heater was still humming, the room still warm. The kittens were still sleeping. But something had changed. The mother's golden eyes were open. She was watching him. Jace froze. Her eyes were brighter now, not strong, but alive. She didn't growl. She didn't hiss. She simply looked at him. Then, very weakly, she lowered her head in his direction. It wasn't a bow. It was a thank you. Jace felt warmth spread in his chest. The silence between them didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like trust, soft, fragile, but real. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. And this time, when he spoke, the mother's eyes softened just a little, like she believed him. Jace woke early the next morning, but something felt wrong the moment he opened his eyes. The air was too still. The heater hummed softly, yet the room felt colder. The alien mother lay where he left her, breathing carefully, her wings wrapped around her kittens. But her eyes were open, wide, alert, watching the door. Jace followed her gaze. There were footprints in the dirt outside the shelter. Fresh ones. He stepped closer and crouched to look. They were long and deep, made by heavy boots. 3 sets. They hadn't been there last night. Someone had been near his shelter. His stomach tightened. He checked the mother's reaction again. She wasn't growling, but her wings had pulled the kittens closer, hiding them. Her tail glowed faintly, shaking in fear. "It's okay," Jace whispered, though he wasn't sure it was true. "I'm here." He moved quietly around the shelter, checking the windows and locks. Nothing was broken, but he could tell the ground had been disturbed around the walls, as if someone had circled the place, watching. He grabbed a small scanner from his pack and held it up. The screen flickered. Heat signatures, 3 of them, were not far away, moving slowly. Scouting. Jace felt a chill roll down his spine. The hunters had come back. He remembered the mother's wound, the way it looked like a weapon made it. He remembered the kittens crying alone in the cold vent, abandoned. Someone had wanted them gone on purpose. Someone had hunted them before. Now they had tracked her to him. Jace turned to the mother again. She watched him with anxious eyes, as if she sensed a danger too. When he stepped closer, she tried to sit up, trembling, but she didn't have the strength. "Don't move," he whispered. "You're safe here." But even as he said it, the scanner beeped again. The hunters were getting closer. Jace moved quickly, pulling crates toward the windows to block the view. He dimmed the heater lights and covered the glowing spots on the kittens with a cloth blanket. The mother let him, though her eyes stayed locked on the door. Minutes felt like hours. Then he heard it. Crunch. A boot stepped on a piece of metal outside. Jace froze. Another crunch. Another. And then a voice, low, deep, and cold. "She's close. The tracker says she's breathing." Another voice answered, sharper and annoyed. "The mother should have died by now. We left her long enough. Just grab the kittens and leave." Jace felt anger press against his ribs. They had left her to die on purpose. They had trapped her. They didn't care about her pain, only about the value of her glowing offspring. A third voice chuckled. "The human shelter is small. If she crawled inside, she's ours." Jace clenched his fists. His heart pounded loud enough he thought they would hear it. He moved the mother and knelt beside her. She trembled when she heard the voices, and her wings tightened protectively around the kittens. Her eyes begged him, "Help us." "I won't let them take you," Jace whispered, "or the little ones." He grabbed the small energy tool he kept for repairs. It wasn't a weapon, but it could scare them. Maybe. The voices grew louder. "She's definitely inside. Get ready." Jace quietly pushed the mother's blanket-covered form into the corner, away from the door. He positioned himself between her and the entrance. His hand shook as he held the tool, but he steadied his breath. The doorknob moved. Someone tried to open it slowly. Jace swallowed. His mind raced. He had no real weapons. No backup. Just a weak alien mother, 3 glowing kittens, and his small shelter. But he refused to leave them. The door shook harder as someone tried to force it. "It's locked," one hunter muttered. "Then break it." A heavy bang slammed into the door. The metal bent slightly. The mother let out a quiet, frightened chirp. The kitten stirred under blanket. Bang, bang. On the third hit, the hunters finally stopped. "Hold on," the first voice said suddenly. "Check the scanner." Footsteps shifted. A few seconds passed. Strange. There's another signal inside. A human heat pattern. Who cares? The second one hissed. He probably found them first. Take him out. Jace felt his heartbeat thundering in his ears. But before the hunters could break the door again, the mother suddenly lifted her head. Her golden eyes glowed brighter than before. She let out a soft, trembling sound, a call, a warning, a desperate signal. Her tail lit up with streaks of bright blue light that spread over her wings like living fire. The kittens, sensing her fear, began glowing too. The hunters outside went silent. "What was that?" one whispered. Jace realized something. They were scared. "She's sending a signal," one hunter muttered. "She's calling her people." "Impossible," the other said. "She's too weak." Another glow flashed from the mother's body, brighter this time. A beacon, a cry for help. "You said she was dying," the angry hunter snapped. "She was. Well, she's not anymore." The hunter's footsteps retreated suddenly. Quick, panicked, unsure. They weren't prepared for this. They weren't prepared for her species to be alerted. Jace watched the mother collapse again, exhausted by the energy she used. Her glow faded slowly as her breathing steadied. He touched her head gently. "You did great." Outside, the hunters whispered urgently as they disappeared into the forest. But Jace knew one thing. They would return, and next time they would not run. The night cycle on the station was quiet, but inside the small human cargo bay, something warm and gentle was happening. Alex sat on the floor with the alien cat, Mother resting beside him. Her 3 kittens were curled up between them, glowing softly in shades of blue and purple. Their little bodies pulsed with light every time they breathed. It was calming, almost like watching tiny stars sleep. Alex reached out slowly and touched one of the kittens. It purred in a soft humming sound that vibrated through his hand. The mother cat watched him with her bright silver eyes, but she did not move away. Instead, she lowered her head and pushed gently against his arm. It was her way of showing trust. For a moment, Alex forgot about the hunters. He forgot about the danger waiting outside the old cargo bay doors. All he could think about was the warmth beside him and the tiny lives that depended on him now. He wanted them safe. He wanted them happy. And he wanted to understand why their light seemed so special. When he looked closer, he noticed something strange. The mother cat's glow was weaker than before. Her breathing was slow. It was clear she was tired, maybe even hurt worse than he first thought. She looked at him again, and this time her eyes flashed with a faint pattern of light. He wasn't sure what it meant, but he felt she was trying to tell him something important. Alex kept his voice soft. He knew these creatures reacted strongly to tone. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here. I'll protect you." The mother blinked once, then gently nudged her kittens closer to him. It was a quiet message, a request. She wanted him to care for them, if she could not. He felt a tightness in his chest. He had saved animals before, but nothing like this. These creatures were rare, intelligent, almost magical. And yet they trusted him. A human who only wanted to fix old machines and stay out of trouble. Alex took a deep breath. "You're not going to die," he said softly. "I won't let that happen." He stood up and went to the small table where he kept his tools. There, he grabbed a portable heater and brought it closer to the mother cat. He made sure she was warm, because he remembered that injured animals needed stable heat to recover. He wrapped a soft cloth around her, and she purred in that deep humming way again. Then, something happened that he did not expect. One of the kittens climbed onto his leg, looked up at him, and released a bright pulse of light. It was soft but warm, and he felt almost like a gentle spark on his skin. The mother cat lifted her head weakly and gave a soft chirp, almost like approval. Alex stared at the kitten in surprise. "What was that?" The kitten climbed higher and pressed its tiny forehead against his hand. Another pulse of light moved through its body. But this time, the mother cat's glow grew slightly stronger. Alex's eyes widened. He understood now. The kittens weren't just glowing. They were sharing energy. They were healing her. And for some strange reason, they seemed to be including him too. A warm feeling spread across his chest. It wasn't painful. It wasn't scary. It felt like comfort, like acceptance, like a bond forming between him and them. The little kitten purred, and the other 2 joined in, making the air shimmer with soft light. He sat back down slowly so he wouldn't disturb them. The mother watched him the whole time, and her eyes softened. She understood what her kittens had done. She understood that this human was now part of their small family. Alex placed his hand near the mother's head. She shifted slightly and rested her chin on his fingers. The glow from her body grew brighter, healthier, stronger. He smiled, unable to stop himself. "I guess we're connected now," he whispered. Outside the cargo bay, the mechanical sounds of the station echoed in the distance. The hunters were still somewhere out there. The danger had not ended. But inside this quiet space, something powerful had formed. Something the hunters would never understand. A bond of trust. A bond of protection. A bond of light. And Alex knew, without any doubt, that he would fight for these creatures with everything he had. They were no longer just animals he rescued. They were family. Alex did not sleep that night. He sat near the mother cat and her glowing kittens, watching the soft pulsing lights move through their small bodies. The mother was stronger now, but still weak. The kittens stayed close to her, their tiny humming sounds filling the room like a gentle song. He kept listening for footsteps in the hallway. The hunters had not returned yet, but he knew they would. They had followed the mother across half the station. They would not stop now. These glowing creatures were rare, valuable, and hunted for their light. Alex felt anger building inside him just thinking about it. He checked the door locks again. He checked his tools. He checked the vents. He was only one human, but now he was responsible for 4 lives. And he would not let anyone take them. The mother cat opened her eyes and looked at him. Her silver eyes glowed softly, and she let out a faint chirp. She was thanking him again. Alex smiled. "You're safe with me," he said quietly. But even as he said it, the lights in the hallway flickered. The station's old power lines buzzed. Alex froze. He knew that sound. The hunters were cutting through the security grid. He moved quickly. He grabbed the kittens and placed them gently inside a padded repair crate he normally used for fragile parts. It was warm and dark inside, and the kittens curled up quietly. The mother cat tried to stand, but she stumbled. Alex caught her carefully and placed her beside them. She touched his hand with her nose, as if telling him to be careful. The moment he closed the crate, loud metal footsteps echoed through the hall. Machines. The hunters had brought their tracking drones. Alex's heart thumped hard, but he stood straight. He knew the station better than anyone. He knew every broken pipe, every dead corridor, every dark corner. If he played this right, he could lead the hunters away. He took a deep breath and opened the door. 2 mechanical hunter drones scanned the hallway. Their red lights flickered to him instantly. One of them spoke in a cold robotic voice. "Surrender the glowing creatures." Alex shook his head. "I don't have anything you want." The drone stepped forward. "Detection confirms life signatures. Surrender them." Alex slowly raised his hands, pretending to give up. The drones moved closer. That was exactly what he wanted. With one sudden movement, he slammed his hand down on a panel beside the door. Sparks shot out. The old metal door dropped from the ceiling like a trap, crashing onto one of the drones and pinning it to the floor. The other drone fired a stun beam, but Alex dug behind a crate. The hallway filled with flashes of red light. Machines hummed. Sparks flew. Alex grabbed a heavy pipe and smashed it into the second drone sensor. It staggered, spinning wildly. He hit it again, then again, until it fell silent. His breathing was fast. His arms shook. He was not a soldier. He was just a mechanic. But tonight, he fought like someone who had everything to lose. He rushed back inside and grabbed the crate with the mother cat and her kittens. He whispered, "We have to move. Now." He carried them through a back vent that only he knew about. He crawled through the narrow tunnel, feeling the warmth of the crate against his chest. The kittens stirred inside, glowing faintly. The mother gave a weak purr, letting him know she was still with him. He reached an old docking bay where a small repair ship waited. It was rusty and slow, but it still worked. He placed the crate inside and started the engines. The station shook as the engines came online. Just as the doors of the docking bay opened, more hunters appeared in the shadows. They fired their red beams. hitting the walls around him. Alex pushed the ship harder. "Come on," he shouted to the engine. The ship lifted, rising into the cold blackness of space. The hunters fired again, but the ship burst through the final barrier of the docking bay and disappeared into open space. Silence filled the cockpit. Alex finally let out a long breath. He opened the crate. The kittens crawled out, glowing brighter than before. The mother cat lifted her head and touched her forehead gently against his arm. In that moment, Alex understood something deep and powerful. He was no longer just someone who rescued them. He had become their guardian, their protector, their shield in the dark. The kittens climbed onto his lap, filling the small cockpit with warm, shimmering light. Alex looked out the window at the stars stretching across the sky. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a purpose bigger than himself. He whispered, "No matter where we go next, I'll keep you safe." And their soft glow answered him, like tiny suns trusting the human who stood between them and the whole galaxy.